Okay, now we're back for part 3 of our draw along. And what we're going to add today is kind of simple. We're going to add a building that would, this one would overlap. And we're also going to add some details. So I'm going to show you how you could add some more details on. We'll start out with a window. So let's say I want to draw a series of windows, like maybe I want 3 windows upstairs. So what I'm going to do again is start with that like line for how tall I want the windows to be. So I'm going to keep them kind of small up at the top of the building. And then I'm going to attach them, like what I'm doing, because I'm doing 3 windows in a line, I'm going to attach them to this orthogonal, let me go back even further, this orthogonal line on the left, because it's on the left side of the building. Again, like that is a helpful reminder. I'm going to do the same thing over here, and what I'm doing right now, it looks like I'm just creating one window, but really what I'm doing is creating the guidelines for which like all 3 windows will exist within. Then I'm going to use a vertical line here. There we go. So now I have like one big window. I could leave it that way if I wanted to, but I'm going to go ahead and divide it with some verticals. Remember, like as you're drawing these lines and you get further back in space, I'm going to create borders for each of them too, so that it's not like just a line. Like I don't want them to look like one window divided by panes. I want them to look like their own separate window. And I actually am going to turn it into 4 windows because I want the windows to get a little like thinner as they go back in space. That's going to add to the illusion of depth. Also, having like a thicker border up front will add to the illusion of depth. So I'm going to make it like this, where I cut those windows off here and here. Then it's going to get a little thinner as it moves back in space. Yeah, I think I'll have room for 4. There we go. So as they're working back in space, like having less space in between each window, again, will add to the illusion of depth. If it doesn't quite look spaced out perfectly, then you can go back and fix that, but it will make it appear that they're moving back in space. So a couple things you can do if you are wanting to show like a little bit of a window ledge or tip, then you could attach that to the like you could create trim on your windows or a ledge on your windows by attaching it to the vanishing point on the left. And then if you want to create a little bit of a relief, like it coming off the wall, then you can attach it just a bit to the right, like doing that whole like crossover thing that we talked about, or just creating, there we go, giving a little bit of an angle through like using your different, there you go, you can kind of see how it's like the ledge is like sticking out. If I were to do something like that, I would probably go back in and I would change my vertical to be way over here on the side. I mean, again, this is where you just kind of like wherever your drawing takes you. You know, I started out with a really shallow, now I added like a window ledge. So now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to make my window appear as though it works like in the middle of that window ledge, so that it makes sense, like it's like attached to the building and yet it doesn't look like awkwardly blocky or like it's sticking out in a strange way, because windows don't stick out, they're flush against the building. So, you know, I just made a few corrections to make that window ledge look correct on this side, and then I need to move this vertical as well. I'm going to move it in just a bit so that it's inset just a bit. I'll probably go all the way to the ledge here. So now it looks like I have a window with a ledge. Okay, so that would be one way to like add details on. You could add like kind of like an overhang if you wanted to do that. You know, experimenting with those 2 vanishing points. And now I'm going to show you how you could add like letters on your sign. So again, I'm just going to create boundaries for like where my words would exist by using my orthogonal lines. So let's say this is store, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use vertical lines to keep my letters standing tall, and in let's see, as like guidelines for where my letters could exist. So I'm going to start out here, and maybe I would do, we'll do the word save here. Save big money. So again, I just used those boxes as guidelines for my letters. That kind of works perfectly for an E already. It has all the angles that I need. I can go back in and I can turn those into like block letters if I want to do that. Erase out what's not working. But in this way I can like add on. So when I do block letters, I think I already told you this, but if not, I just like create a twin line for every line that I've already drawn. I mean, that makes for like super simple results that work. I'll do a twin line here and here, and then the same thing here. And I would go through and just erase out the scratchy lines, clean it up, make it a little bit prettier. Get rid of my guidelines now. I don't need any of those. And I'll just have the letters like save floating on the wall here. I'll show you what this looks like. Not my favorite pencil, by the way. Bic Mechanical. Maybe great for like something else. My letters are spaced kind of funky. Maybe I just kind of work with that a little bit, but I have the general overall size of my letters. So I can work with that a little bit and improve that. Space them out a little bit better. You get the idea. That's how you can like add a sign to the top of a building. And now let's draw a second building in the background. So you've done your windows, now you've drawn a sign, and we're gonna draw an overlapping building in the background. Now, one thing to know when you're drawing this is that if you were to draw your building, like the corner of your building, your vertical, all the way down here, like it wouldn't be in line. It would now like kind of jag out. It wouldn't look like it sits behind the building. It would mess up your perspective. So you wanna use this baseline for your first building as a guideline for where like the lowest point to draw your vertical. So I'm gonna go ahead and draw a vertical, and this building is going to be taller, and it's going to tuck behind my first building. So I drew my vertical nice and tall, and in fact, I don't need to put it like straight on that line if I don't want to. Like I can push it back, you know, up a little higher if I want. So I'm gonna try that, just like pushing it back a little bit just so that I can show you how that works as well. It's not going to appear that they were built together. It's going to look like this one is sitting back further if I don't draw it all the way to this guideline. So I just use this guideline to know where to not draw below. And now I'm going to attach this side to the left side to the left vanishing point, and I'm going to stop at the building. There's no reason to draw through the building. I'm going to attach this top part of the vertical to the left side. Again, no reason to draw through the building. I'm going to do the same thing on the right side. So attach here and attach here. There we go. And now you can kind of start to see how I have another building that's like sitting back behind. I'm going to make this building a little bit taller. So I'm going to move my ruler, my vertical now. I'm going to cut off the building in space, and I'm going to move it up here. Now this building, you know, from your last exercise, just to be clear, this building that you just drew, it sits both above and below the horizon line. So I don't need to draw another plane for it. This plane is enough. Like I said, I'm gonna make it a tall, thin building. So I'm drawing another vertical to cut it off in space on this side. Squeakiest table ever. It's really, really old, that's why. I'm gonna get rid of my horizon line where I can see it through the building. And now you see I have building number 2 that I have created sitting back behind building number 1. So there's all kinds of options now. Like now if I want to draw like beautiful, lovely little tree here right in the middle of town, I can do that. I can use my foreshortened circle to give the illusion of depth and like some mulch out here in the around the tree. I can add a trash can with a cylinder, using a cylinder shape, cylinder cone shape, something like that. If I want to put a trash can, it doesn't really look like a trash can. It's like the prettiest trash can I've ever seen, you know, however they make it. I think they're actually like rectangles, so I could use that. Anytime I do a straight-sided object, I probably wouldn't freehand. I would actually use more of like a ruler for anything that's straight-sided. But you see now how you can create a second building that works with your first building. You would of course add on to the details. For this project, you are going to need to create a minimum of 3 buildings with windows, doors, balconies, maybe a sign. The sign is optional. You could have people up there. You could add details and trees. Please make sure to look at your project description to make sure that you get all the information and that you know everything that's expected. I'm going to go ahead and draw as well. I'm going to draw really quickly, like if there were a sidewalk that came through here, I'm just attaching it to that vanishing point. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and just make the sidewalk bend around the building. So I'm going to extend that corner just so you can kind of see, like always going back to the orthogonal line, just so you can kind of see how it would work its way around the building. So here we go. I would have another part of the sidewalk over here. And I could even end up removing that line because that line kind of like throws everything off. But now you see how there could be like a sidewalk. I'll draw the sidewalk, or the suggestion one right here, how you could do a sidewalk. Again, I would use like maybe vertical lines, or actually, nope, I take that back. In order to make the lines look correct with perspective, I would use my orthogonal line, my opposite orthogonal line, just kind of like hinge on that to like put the lines in the sidewalk if you're wanting to do something like that. Okay. So hopefully this gives you some ideas for different things you can incorporate. Of course, you can also look up ideas online. So sorry for the really super long video that I continued and made even longer, but hopefully it's going to be helpful for you for preparing for your project.